Om Akhandam Satchidanandam Avang Manasagocharam Atmanam Akhiladharam Ashraye Bhishta Siddhaye. I take refuge in the self, the indivisible, the existence, consciousness, bliss absolute, beyond the reach of words and thought, and the substratum of all, for the attainment of my cherished desire. So, with Vedanta Sara, in our study of the Vedantasara, we have come to a crucial point where some very vital concepts and very interesting concepts. For example, what is the role of the mind in enlightenment? Brahma Jnana, Atma Jnana, what we are all trying to get. What is the role of the mind? Why is this question important? Because we keep hearing um, that it is beyond thought, beyond the mind. And again, we see that the Upanishads themselves say that it is to be realized by the mind alone. Not only that, we ourselves observe that whatever we are doing is thoroughly in the mind. All our study, even our meditation, even samadhi, when you try to shut down the mind in deep meditation, you're shutting down the mind. You're working with the mind. So the mind is absolutely vital to all of this, and yet we are told that it is beyond the mind. So what is exactly the role of the mind in enlightenment? That takes us to the bigger question. What is enlightenment? What happens during enlightenment? What is the mechanism? And then it takes us to the even bigger question. What is the nature of knowledge itself? According to Advaita Vedanta, any kind of knowledge. Because enlightenment is knowledge about Brahman or about ourself. The identity of Brahman and the individual self, Jiva Brahma Aikya. That is the knowledge we are looking for in Vedanta. But what is the knowledge in general? What do you, when you see somebody, when you hear sound, when you think, all this kind of knowledge, what is going on there? So these are the questions which are now going to be answered. So these are very important and very interesting also. But the points which are being made here are subtle, so you have to pay attention and think about it. I've given you the outline last time, but we will dive into it this time. So we were on text number 172. In 172, we already read this. I'll just quickly go through it and then proceed. 172 says, Satu chit pratibimba sahita sati pratyagabhinnam agyatam param brahma vishaykritya tadgata ajnanameva badhate tada patakarana tantudahe patadaha vadakhilakarane ajnane badhite sati tat karyasya akhilasya badhitatvad tadantarbhuta akhandakarakarita chittavrittirapi badhita bhavati. What does that mean? Remember, that the basic concepts, in fact, the talk I gave on Sunday, the lamp of bliss, which is based on the 7th chapter of the Panchadashi, which is based on the Brihadaranyaka Upanishad, Atmanam Ched Vijaniyat Ayam Asmiti Purusha, Brihadaranyaka Upanishad 4.4.12. There we talked about this. The crucial concept here is you are really pure consciousness, Chit. And because of Maya, you are reflected in Maya and its products. What is the product of Maya? Especially one important product is the mind. So you, the pure consciousness, are reflected in the mind. So now you have three concepts. Analytically speaking, you have the pure consciousness, Chaitanya, which is the only reality that there is. Then you have Maya and its products, which are all Maya, mind, and so on. And then you have the reflection of consciousness in that Maya, which is called Chidabhasa, reflected consciousness. And the example I gave, keep it in mind, everything will be clear. The face, your real face, this face. And then there is a mirror. Or for example, this is also good. In a computer, in a camera, I can see my own face in the computer. So here is my real face. There is my reflected face or the image of my face. And that requires a mirror or a computer. Now, this real face is like Chit, pure consciousness. And the reflecting medium, mirror or computer, is like Maya and mind. Especially here, we'll just call it the mind. And the reflected face there is called Chidabhasa. It's like the reflected consciousness. Now, of these three, mind, everybody knows. We all feel the mind right now. There's nobody who does not has not some notion of the mind, at least, because we are all the time using it. We're thinking, feeling, imagining, remembering, desiring, understanding. All of this is the mind. And note carefully, in the mind right now, you feel aware. So I'm making a distinction. Within the mind itself, I'm distinguishing the awareness in the mind from the contents of the mind. Let me repeat. I am distinguishing the awareness in the mind from the contents in the mind. What is this distinction like? It's like distinguishing the reflected face from the mirror. The mirror is like the mind, and the awareness is like the reflected face. So now, when knowledge happens, what happens? By using our sense organs, our eyes, or like right now, for example, we are using ears to listen to the voice. So the ears will deliver sound to the mind, and in the mind, the sound creates a vritti. You're paying attention to what is coming into the ears. So there's a vritti. Vritti means a modification in the mind, a thought about the input from the sense organ. That thought is illumined by what? By the reflected consciousness there. The Chidabhasa in the mind, which is always there. Just like if you have a mirror and you look at the mirror, your face will always be reflected in the mirror. You are pure consciousness, and the presence of the mind reflects that pure consciousness. That reflected consciousness, Chidabhasa, will illumine anything happening in the mind. Now, what is happening in the mind? Chitta vritti. Whatever happens in the mind is called a chitta vritti. How do these chitta vrittis come? Swami Vivekananda gives a nice example of a pebble being thrown into a lake. When you throw a pebble into a lake, there are ripples created. So what are the pebbles? All the inputs from the world. Sound, form, smell, taste, touch. And not only from the external world, from within the mind itself. Memories, desires, all of these create ripples in the lake of the mind. These ripples are called vrittis. Note, the vrittis are nothing but the mind. They are the mind itself in motion. And each vritti is about something. So you are, right now you are having vrittis in the mind. They are about the sound of my speech. You are having vrittis in the mind. They are about the computer screen, which is giving a form, a vritti about it. So you have computer akara vritti, shabdakara vritti. These are vrittis going on in the mind. And as the vrittis are going on in the mind, they are being continuously illumined by the reflected consciousness present in the mind. This mind taking vrittis about something is called vritti vyapti. Suppose we want to know X, some object X. It could be a form, it could be a sound, something. Then the mind will have an X akara vritti, the vritti about X. And the reflected consciousness in the mind will illumine that vritti. So when the vritti is there, we call it vritti vyapti, pervasion by the vritti. What is pervaded by the vritti? That object X, that input X. It's a fancy way of simply saying that you are having a vritti, or you're attending to that sensory input. That's all. You're paying attention to that sensory input. Simultaneously, what happens is the reflected consciousness riding on that vritti illumines the content of that vritti. This is called phalabhyapti. Phalabhyapti, pervasion by reflected consciousness. These are little dry abstract terms, but they are something, please note, they are going on right now. There's nothing abstract about it. Right now, we are experiencing, and if you note it, you can immediately note what's going on. Are you not paying attention to what I'm saying? If you are, then what you're doing is you are using your sense organs and paying attention by the mind. That's generating a vritti in the mind about my speech. That vritti is being lit up by the awareness constantly present in the mind. So why are you distinguishing the awareness from the vritti? Because the vrittis keep changing. Right now you're listening to my speech. After that you will see something else. After that you may take a dinner. You'll have a taste vritti, sound vritti, form vritti. Various vrittis are coming. Even when you're listening to me, it's not one vritti. Moment to moment to moment, vrittis are coming and going. Every word of mine, every sound is creating a vritti in your mind. So vrittis keep changing, but the reflected consciousness is the same. One Chidabhasa. That reflected consciousness keeps on illumining these vrittis. That is called phalabhyapti. So these two terms, please keep in mind, vritti vyapti and phalabhyapti. Now, what happens is, in the case of enlightenment, Brahma Jnana, realization, what happens is, we generate a vritti about Brahman. How do you generate that? By the Shravana, Manana, Nididhyasana of Vedanta, what we are doing right now. If it falls in place, if it clicks, if it's the right vritti, exactly what is being transmitted by the Upanishads, we get it as it is meant to be, as the rishis of the Upanishads meant. In communication, any kind of communication, there's the speaker and there is the hearer. There is the originator of the communication and there's the recipient of the communication. And the originator has an intention. In Sanskrit, it is called vivaksha, what is intended to be conveyed. And if the recipient understands it in exactly the same way as what the communicator wanted to convey, then the communication is successful. So the Upanishadic communication is successful. Then what will happen is there will be a vritti vyapti about Brahman. What it is like, it just sort of falls into place. It clicks in a moment. And that vritti vyapti, normally it should be illumined by the reflected consciousness. But the reflected consciousness is not necessary anymore. Why? Because the reflected consciousness is coming from Brahman. It's like, I give you the example of the moon reflecting the sun's light back to the sun. The moonlight need not illumine the sun, because the sun is shining with its own light 1,000,000 times brighter than the moon. And not only that, moreover, the moonlight is nothing other than the sunlight. It is the sun's own light. So the sun blazes forth. Just that conjunction has to happen. Earth, moon, sun. In this case, that conjunction has to happen. You have to get it, what the Upanishad is trying to say. Just by the way, I heard a very nice simile about, or metaphor, about what the Upanishads are. Did you ever hear this? That the Upanishads are a burp? Dekur in Bengali. The great Marathi saint, Gyaneshwar, he says the rishis of the Upanishads, they stuffed themselves with self-knowledge. They filled their bellies with self-knowledge. They had a nice feast of self-knowledge. And they burped. And that burp was the Upanishads. So Swami Vivekananda also said, these are the expressions of the realizations of the rishis. But I never thought that this most august and ancient and sacred of scriptures would be described as a burp. So, all right. Now, what happens? Well, one more point to be noted. What exactly is the function of vritti vyapti? What exactly is the function of phala vyapti? In any knowledge, the function of vritti vyapti is to destroy the ignorance about that object. So I want to know X. Right now, I'm ignorant about X. Why? For example, what is behind me right now? Maybe you can see, but I can't see. So I'm ignorant about it, what is behind me. So in one way, I can put it that what is behind me is covered by ignorance for me. How do I remove that ignorance? I have to create a vritti vyapti. How do I create the vritti vyapti? I have to look around and use my eyes and see what is there behind me. That creates a vritti about the thing which is behind me, and it removes the ignorance about that. Simultaneously, what happens is the reflected consciousness in the mind will illumine the revealed object, and I will get the knowledge that I see what's there. So vritti vyapti destroys ignorance, phala vyapti reveals or illumines the object. I'll repeat again. Objects are hidden to us. The vritti vyapti destroys the ignorance. Hidden by what? Hidden by ignorance. Vritti vyapti destroys ignorance. Phala vyapti illumines the object. Another example, dark room. You have a flashlight. Now the problem with the flashlight is it cannot illumine the whole room. You have only a beam of light. So to see things in the room, you have to continuously focus that beam of light. That focusing is the vritti vyapti. Just the focusing, that means just you turn the flashlight around this way and that way. That is creating the vrittis. And wherever the light falls, that is the phala vyapti. So the light is absolutely essential, but the light by itself will not reveal what you want to see. You need to focus it. And then You need to focus the instrument, and then the light which is riding that instrument. Why I'm using the riding? Because these are the terms used. Vritti arudha Chaitanya, the consciousness riding the vritti. By the way, when I'm talking about all of this, those who are who have studied Vedanta in depth, especially Vedanta Paribhasa, there is a whole discussion about how the Antakarana vritti flows out and covers the object to be cognized and destroys the ignorance there, and the consciousness, reflected consciousness riding on that Antakarana vritti illumines the object so uncovered. I'm not going into all of that. Not necessary. Just we need to understand what's going on in very practical and simple terms. So, in the case of Brahma Jnana, Vritti Vyapti is necessary, Phala Vyapti is not necessary. This is a you can see the power of these terms in a very short way, like a philosophical shorthand. You can answer the question. In the case of enlightenment, the Brahma Jnana, realization, I am Brahman, Vritti Vyapti, absolutely essential. You must focus. You must focus the flashlight. You must turn your mind towards your real self, Brahman, which is inwards actually. But the reflected consciousness in the mind will simply merge back with, will become one with the original consciousness, or the pure consciousness, Chit. Chidabhasa, in our terms, Chidabhasa will not reveal Chit. Chit is always self-revealed. But the mirror of the mind must be focused, turned towards, or turned, must be made about the Chit. I'm saying the same thing multiple times in different ways. All right, that should be enough. So what happens? The consciousness, Satu Chit Pratibimba Sahita Sati, that the mind, Chidabhasa, the mind, there's a Vritti Vyapti created, Parabrahmam Vishayikritya. That means Vritti Vyapti is created. And Tadgata Ajnanameva Badhate, the ignorance about Parabrahman, our real nature, is negated. Then what happens is, one more point, when the ignorance about our real nature is negated, then every product of that ignorance is also negated. What is that ignorance? Maya. When Maya is negated, all products of Maya, mind, body, universe, everything is negated. Negated means, be careful, negated, I introduced the term badhate. Badhate means not that the entire universe will be pounded into cosmic dust or something. It just means it will be falsified. Mithyatva nishchaya. Falsification. You realize that it's not real. Oh, the sky is not really blue. It's just this scattering of light, which physics has revealed to me. But when I look at the sky, still looks blue. There is no mirage. There's no water in the desert. It's just a mirage. But when I look at it, it still looks like water. Similarly, for an enlightened person, once this process has finished, and opens the eyes, looks around the universe, will still look the same. But the enlightened person now knows, thoroughly knows, without any effort, effortlessly knows, it's an appearance. I, the underlying Chaitanyam, pure consciousness, am the only reality. That Satchidananda is the only reality. So, Patakarana tantudahe patadahavad. Just like if you burn the threads in a cloth, the cloth is also automatically burned. Similarly, akhila karanaye ajnane badhite sati. When the material of the entire universe, the material cause of the entire universe, which is ignorance, maya, ajnana, when it is negated, tat karyasya, the product of that maya is the mind. And in that mind is the Brahma Jnana, the realization which has just come. You remember the Vritti Vyapti? Where is the Vritti Vyapti? In the mind, it is mental Vritti only. That will also be negated. That will also be negated, because if the mind is falsified, then the knowledge in the mind also will be falsified. And so, Chitta Vrittim api badhita sati. This answers another question. After enlightenment, you realize you are Brahman. So what will remain? Will two things remain? Brahman and the knowledge of Brahman? No, only Brahman will remain. Even the knowledge of Brahman will be negated. In the last talk on this Sunday, I raised this question. Panchadashi author Vidyaranya has raised this question, that when the opponent asks, so you are saying that this reflected consciousness is not real? Yes, we agree. Only pure consciousness is real. If the reflected consciousness is not real, whose knowledge, who generates this knowledge? It's the reflected consciousness in the mind where the knowledge is generated. If the reflected consciousness is not real, if the mind is not real, then the knowledge I am Brahman in that mind is also not real. The opponent thinks he has caught us, trapped. Vidyaranya Swami, you can imagine his humor, and he's so blunt and blatant about it. He says, "Naiti kovadet." Who says that it is not real? Who says that it is? Who says that it is real? Who denies it? Naiti kovadet. Who is denying it? We admit it. The knowledge also is false. Now this confused some people. Somebody asked, "So then I am not Brahman?" Somebody felt hurt that it's false. No, you are Brahman, you always were Brahman. That fact is not touched. Just the ignorance about the fact that I was Brahman, that is gone, and the knowledge which is generated, that is part of the mind, universe, body, mind, they are all falsified. Therefore, the knowledge is also falsified. Falsified means what? It's an appearance. It is none other than Brahman. That's all. And the example that Vidyaranya gave was very nice. Rajju Sarpa Visarpanam. He says, like the snake, rope snake, when you realize it's a rope, the snake goes away. It's like saying, is the going away of the snake real or not? The snake, like, is sort of saying the figure of speech, the snake slithers away. The slithering away of a false snake, is it real or not? What I mean by that is, snake was not real. Everybody, now we have understood that. So the snake is gone. Now the opponent is, you are asking, so did the going away of the snake is real or not? Because if I say that the going away of the snake is not real, you will immediately say, the snake is still there. Did it go away or not? It was never there to begin with. It was an error. So the going away of the snake is also part of that error. In that sense only, that I am Brahman knowledge is falsified. Not that the fact that you are Brahman, that is not falsified. You were Brahman even before that knowledge. That knowledge did not make you Brahman. Enlightenment does not make you the absolute. You already are. That way that sadhus, I still remember always, this sadhu used to say, Tum jano ya na jano, tum mano ya na mano, tum hi Ram. Whether you know it or not, whether you accept it or not, you are Rama. You are God or one with God. So, chitta vritti rapi badhita bhavati. Even the Brahmakara vritti, I am Brahman, that also is negated. Because it is a product in the mind itself, produced in the mind. When the mind is negated, it's also negated. Okay. Then number 173. Tatra pratibimbitam chaitanyam api yatha deepa prabha aditya prabha abhasana asamatha sati tayabhibhuta bhavati tatha swayam prakashamana pratyagabhinna parabrahma avabhasana anarhataya tenabhibhutam sat स्वउपाधिभूत अखंड वृत्तेर्बाधितत्वात् दर्पणाभावे मुखप्रतिबिम्बस्य मुखमात्रत्वात् Vat pratyagabhinna parabrahmamatram bhavati. They are fond of long sentences. As the light of a lamp cannot illumine the lustre of the sun but is overpowered by it, so consciousness reflected in that state of the mind is unable to illumine the supreme Brahman, self-effulgent and identical with the individual self, and is overpowered by it. And on the destruction of this state of absolute oneness with which that consciousness is associated, there remains only the supreme Brahman, identical with the individual self. Just as the image of a face in a looking glass is resolved into the face itself when the looking glass is removed. So one must carefully understand and apply these examples. Tatra pratibimbitam chaitanyam api. So now he's saying, what is he going to say? That phalabhyapti is not necessary. He's going to say that. The reflected consciousness in that vritti. Which vritti? I am Brahman. How did that come? By carefully listening to the classes and thinking about it and meditating upon it, especially by Shravana. And that comes, that vritti, with that reflected consciousness. That reflected consciousness does not reveal Brahman. The reflected consciousness does not reveal Brahman. Just like the flashlight. You take the beam of the flashlight beam and you can see things in the room. But if you turn the flashlight towards the sun, if you turn the flashlight towards the sun, will you say, now I saw a table, a chair, a person, like the books in the dark room with my light. Now I'm seeing the sun with my light. How silly is that? Similarly, he says, just like a deepa prabha, avabhasana samartha arha, just as the lamp, if you take a little oil lamp and hold it towards the sun, that is, it is impossible. It is a crazy thing to say that little flickering light of my little oil lamp is now illumining the sun. Not necessary. Why? Taya abhibhuta bhavati. It is simply overwhelmed by the billion times more effulgence of the sun. And that's why the moonlight example is even better. Because in the lamp light, you feel sort of difference. Sunlight is different, lamp light is different, but moonlight and sunlight is, so that's why I really like the example given by that Swami Ramananda Saraswati. And that's what exactly is happening to us. All the light we use right now, light means our thinking, feeling, all the now more technical term, phalabhyapti, which we are using all the time, the reflected consciousness, is nothing but the tiny, tiny fraction of that one indivisible light channeled or reflected of a fragment of Maya, which has given rise to our antakarana, our inner instrument. And then swayam prakashamana pratyagavinna parabrahma avabhasana anahartaya, the self-effulgent parabrahma, the supreme Brahman, which is pratyagavinna, which is non-different from you, the inner self. You are that. You are that, and that is you. And I'm a part of that. Everybody else is that. No, there's no everybody else and no part. You are that, and that is you. And that is nothing but you, and you are nothing but that. Tena abhibhutam sat, that little reflected consciousness in the mind is overwhelmed by you, the infinite consciousness. So upadhibhuta akhanda vrittir bhajitatvat. And where is that reflected consciousness? It's in that vritti. What vritti? I am Brahman. But that I am Brahman vritti has been falsified already, because you are enlightened. You realize that the whole world, including the mind, is also an appearance. And that knowledge, I am Brahman, that's also an appearance. Then what happens? Mukha pratibimbasya mukhamatratvavat. Just as if you remove the mirror, remember our example, my real face, mirror, reflected face. If you remove the mirror, then the reflected face is, in a way of speaking, it remains as nothing but the real face. Mirror is gone. Where is the reflected face? You may say reflected face is gone, but gone where? In a manner of speaking, you might say it is nothing but the real face. Similarly, that consciousness riding in your mind right now, it remains as its original source, which is pure consciousness, which you are. It says, pratyagavinna parabrahma matram bhavati. That supreme Brahman, pratyagavinnam, non-different from the inner self which you are, that alone remains. What's the point of this? The point of this is that for enlightenment, vritti vyapti is necessary and phala vyapti is not necessary. Vritti vyapti is created by Shravan, Manan, Nididhyasana, and then once the vritti vyapti happens and the self-effulgent Brahman reveals itself, then what will happen? The vritti vyapti itself will also be falsified. The mind will be falsified, the vritti vyapti. That's why enlightened persons do not want to say, I am enlightened. It doesn't seem true to them. We will misunderstand. We'll think, oh, so you are not enlightened. No, not that way. You're perfectly enlightened. For our practical purposes, we should consider enlightened persons as enlightened. We should say they are Brahmagyani. Technically, however, the enlightened person, the Brahmagyani, will refuse to say that, because I am Brahman, not a Brahmagyani. Brahmevaham, natu Brahmavit. I think Vivek Chudamani also, Shankaracharya says, I am Brahman, not a knower of Brahman. Then 174. Evam cha sati manasaiva anudrashtavyam yan manasana manute ityanayoho shrutyor avirodho vritti vyapyatvang angikarena phalavvyapyatva pratishedha pratipadanat. Such being the case, there is no contradiction between the following Shruti passages. By the mind alone it is to be perceived from Brihadaranyaka Upanishad, and that which cannot be thought of by the mind, Kena Upanishad. We are to suppose that the unknown Brahman is brought into contact with only the mental state, but not with the underlying consciousness. What does it mean? What we have discussed till now. One of the Upanishads says, Brihadaranyaka Upanishad, Manaseva Anudrashtabhyam, it can be known by the mind alone. Every knowledge is in the mind, including knowledge of the absolute. It's by the mind alone. And the Kena Upanishad says just the opposite. Yan manasana manute. It cannot be thought of by the mind. The mind cannot conceive of it, cannot reveal it. What does this mean? It means this apparent conflict, contradiction, shruti, virodha, it is avirodha. There is no contradiction at all. Why? Now you can easily answer it. Yes, it is to be known by the mind alone because vritti vyapti is essential. Pervasion by the mental vritti is essential for Brahmagyana. Yes, it cannot be known by the mind because phala-vyapti is not possible or not essential, not required for Brahmagyana. Brahman reveals itself. The reflected consciousness in the mind does not reveal Brahman. The sun reveals itself. Your flashlight does not reveal the sun. So this is the answer. What was the question we had? What is the role of the mind? Is the mind necessary for Brahmagyana? Yes. Will the mind reveal Brahman? No. So yes, why? Because vritti vyapti is necessary. One must do Shravana, Manana, Nididhyasana. One must focus the flashlight. But, or you want to see the sun, you must turn towards the sun, definitely. But then your flashlight need not reveal the sun. The reflected consciousness, chidabhasa in the vritti, which reveals every other kind of thing in the world, without which nothing can be known in the world. But Brahman it need not reveal. Then he quotes, where did you get all these fancy theories? He says, not mine. He quotes Panchadashi, in fact. Taduktam, it is said, phalabhyapyatvamevasya shastrakridbhir nivaritam brahmanyajnanashaya vrittivyaptirapekshita iti. From Panchadashi. Thus it has been said, the authors of the scriptures have refuted the idea that the individual consciousness can manifest the Brahman, but they admit that Brahman associated with ignorance is brought into contact with the mental states only for the purpose of dispelling ignorance regarding it. Clear enough? What the Panchadashi says is that the masters, those who have burped out the scriptures, Shastrakrit means the composers of the Shastras, they have denied that the reflected consciousness will reveal the absolute reality. That cannot happen. Phalabhyapti, not necessary. But vritti vyapti is necessary. For what purpose? What does it do? It removes ignorance about Brahman. We have ignorance in the mind about the reality and knowledge in the mind. Now we can be very precise. What kind of knowledge? Vritti vyapti. Vritti vyapti in the mind will remove the ignorance about Brahman in the mind. But unlike all other knowledge, Brahman, that ultimate reality, will reveal itself in devotional language. That's why in devotional language, again and again, it is said, you don't realize God. God reveals out of his own grace. God reveals himself, or God gives you his own darshan. We have the idea in Hindu, mysticism. God gives you the vision. It's the grace of God. You have not been able to catch hold of God by your own spiritual practices. That's a devotional language. This also explains the Upanishadic thing, that the Atman reveals itself to those on whom the Atman, to whom the Atman wants to reveal itself. So what do you mean Atman wants to reveal itself to someone? It's just that Atman is self-luminous. No, your phalabhyapti is not necessary, but your vritti vyapti is necessary. Then 176, Swayam prakashamanatvat nabhasopayujyate iti. Panchadashi also further says, Brahman being self-luminous does not depend on the individual consciousness for its illumination. Individual consciousness, reflected consciousness. Everything else is revealed by reflected consciousness. But Brahman is not revealed by reflected consciousness. Everything you can see with your flashlight, but the sun you cannot see with your flashlight. Cannot see means you need not. It is meaningless to shine your flashlight on the sun. Then all this is true only of enlightenment, realization of Brahman. It is not true of other things in the world. Jada 177. Jada padartha akarakarita chitta vrittir vishesho asti. But there's a difference when the mental state assumes the form of material objects. When you see something, hear something, smell, taste, touch something, when you think of something, when you remember something, desire something, try to understand something, all of these are our ordinary day-to-day use of knowledge. Both are necessary, vritti vyapti and phala vyapti. Tathahi, to explain further, ayam ghata iti ghatakara karita chitta vittir ajnatam ghatam vishayikritya tadgata ajnana nirasana purassaram swagata chidabhasena jadam ghatam api bhasayati. Simple enough. Because in the case of the experience, this is a jar. The mental state assumes the form of the jar, makes the unknown jar its object, dispels ignorance regarding it. Then the consciousness underlying the mental state manifests the material jar. To put it very simply, there is a pot, ghata, a pot. When I get the knowledge, this is a pot. First, there must be a vritti in the mind about the pot. What does the vritti do? How does the vritti come? Look at the pot, or touch the pot, or whatever. And what does the vritti do? It removes ignorance about the pot. And immediately, the reflected consciousness in that vritti, because reflected consciousness is always there. When the mirror is there, reflected face will be there. Reflected consciousness always there. That reflected consciousness illumines the pot in your vritti. And you get the resultant knowledge, I am ghata, this is a pot. So both are necessary for any kind of worldly knowledge. Both are necessary. Both means vritti vyapti, phala vyapti. This answers the question, what is knowledge in Vedanta? This is the question. Before this, we saw what is Brahma Jnana, the knowledge of Brahman. And before that, we saw what is the role of mind in Brahma Jnana, where it is necessary, where it is not necessary. Taduktam, another quotation. It is said thus, buddhi tatstha chidabhaso dvavapi vyapnute ghatam tatra jnanam dhiya nashyed abhasena ghataspuret. Thus it has been said, both the intellect and the consciousness underlying it come into contact with the jar. The intellect destroys the ignorance regarding the jar, and underlying consciousness manifests the jar. Simple words, there's a jar and you have intellect coming into contact means vritti vyapti. You have a vritti vyapti, a vritti about the jar, an understanding, a thought about the jar. And then there's phala vyapti, the reflected consciousness, chidabhasa in your intellect, in your mind, that illumines the vritti. So ignorance is destroyed by vritti vyapti, and the object is illumined or revealed by phala vyapti. The mind, the knowledge in the mind destroys ignorance regarding the object, and the reflected consciousness in the mind reveals that object to you. Basically, what will happen at the end of it? In a split second, you will get the knowledge. This is a pot. Two things have happened. Your ignorance about the pot has been removed by the vritti in the mind about the pot, and the reflected consciousness in that vritti reveals that pot to you, and you get the feeling, I know the pot, I see the pot, I touch the pot, whatever. And that's ordinary knowledge, all sorts of ordinary knowledge. This is basically what's going on. And please note, in your own experience, you can immediately see all these things happening all the time. 180. Yatha deepa prabha mandalam andhakar Deepa Mandala Mandandhakaragatam Ghatapatadikam Vishaikritya Tadgata Andhakara Nirasana Purassaram Swaprabhaya Tadapi Bhasayati iti. Just as the light of a lamp coming into contact with a jar or cloth existing in darkness dispels the darkness, which envelops them and through its own luster manifests them as well. So the flashlight example, there's a cloth or a pot in the darkness. It's alliterative, ghata pata. So pata means cloth, ghata means pata means cloth, and ghata means pot. And in the darkness, you focus your lamp or your flashlight. That focusing is called vritti vyapti, and that destroys the ignorance about it. And then the light, that means the reflected consciousness in the mind, illumines that object. That is called phala vyapti. Vritti vyapti destroys ignorance, phala vyapti reveals it. In the case of enlightenment, you need to destroy the ignorance. Ignorance in the mind, destroyed by knowledge in the mind, that's vritti vyapti. Brahmakara vritti. But you need not reveal it, because that what you're talking about is self-revealed. So that sort of concludes our discussion of Advaita Vedanta. Before you know it, it's over. After this, what will happen, a lot of interesting stuff will come, but the difficult part is over. The teaching is over. After this, what will happen, I'll tell you. How do we do this? Sadhana, practices. And the practices we have been hearing all the time, that it is Savana, Manana, Nididhyasana, hearing and contemplation, reasoning and meditation. But how? Is there any technique, special procedure of hearing or Shravana? Is there any procedure? What goes on in Manana? And what kind of meditation you're supposed to do? So those practical matters will be dealt with. Very interesting, but nothing very difficult at all there. And then the result of it all, which is Jivan Mukti, enlightenment. I mean, the living while free. They will talk about it. And they're always in ecstasies when they talk about the great fun that is awaiting all of us at the end of all of this. So there'll be the result of all of this, phalam, in Sanskrit, phalam, result. And that brings Vedantasara to a close. What we have done till today is the teaching, is Advaita Vedanta, an outline of Advaita Vedanta with all the concepts. The basic concepts have been defined and clarified. But remember, these are not the original texts. The original texts we will start after finishing Vedantasara. The original texts are the Upanishads, the burp from the enlightened masters. So we will start studying all of that. There you will not find it so systematic, neat and geometric. Here it seems very neat. It's been organized and thought over and systematized over centuries, and you get it in this form. Remember, this was for introducing it to students, for newcomers. Now when you jump into the Upanishads, you're going back to the ocean. We have learned swimming in a swimming pool here, where everything is neat and safe and nice. And then you're going to jump into the ocean to swim next, now that we are ready to swim. But the ocean has waves and sharks and octopuses and so on and so forth. Where is the teaching? Let me delineate it for you, mark it out for you. It starts with text number 32. Asarpa bhutayam rajjo sarparopavat vastuni avastu aropa adhyaropa. Superimposition is seeing, just like seeing a snake in a rope, making a mistake. Similarly, seeing this entire universe in one absolute Brahman, that is superimposition. It starts there, text number 32. And it ends with where we ended today, text number 180, with clarifying certain matters regarding illumination or enlightenment. So this is Advaita Vedanta. Yeah, there's quite a bit remaining now, but the essence has been touched upon. You are equipped to actually swim in the ocean with the big guys now. All right, let's take a look at what's being discussed in the chat. How do I become, Prabir Basu is asking, how do I become aware of the vritti? Is it the Chidabhasa or the pure consciousness which makes me aware of the vritti? The vritti itself is always illumined by the Chidabhasa. But the object of the vritti, that you are having a vritti in the mind, that is always revealed by Chidabhasa. But the object of the vritti, that is revealed by by the vritti, by the phalabhyapti in the case of ordinary objects. But in the case of the absolute reality, pure consciousness, which is your own reality, that is self-revealed. That reflected consciousness need not reveal. It's like this. When I look at this book, I have book akara vritti in my mind. So this looking at the book and attending to this information creates a vritti in the mind. That there is a vritti in the mind is revealed by the reflected consciousness. But this book also has to be revealed by the reflected consciousness, because the book is not luminous. I mean, it's not consciousness itself. But when the question is about Brahman, my real self, then the vritti will remove the ignorance about my real self. I know what it is like, and then the real self will become obvious to me. It's already obvious. It's already there, actually. Just like it's just like the original face. My real face is always there. Whenever I'm looking at my reflected face in the mirror, my original face, the real face is always there. But what's the problem? You can see the reflected face, but you can't see the original face, the real face. Similarly, reflected consciousness, Chidabhasa, you are aware of that. You are using that to become aware of everything, and that also you are aware of right now. But the real consciousness, pure consciousness, Chit, Brahman, Atman, witness consciousness, you're not aware of it because it's not an object. In enlightenment, you realize what it is and you are free. What happens is that suddenly I realize, oh, I'm not that reflected face which is entirely dependent on the mirror. Mirror gets dirty, reflected face, reflection is poor. Mirror is cracked, reflection is disturbed. Mirror is wavy or concave or convex, reflection changes. The reflected face is entirely dependent on the mirror because it's nothing other than it shares the material nature of the mirror. But the moment I realize I am not it, I am this, I'm free of the mirror and all its limitations now. All the sorrow, suffering, limitations of the reflected consciousness, I am free of it. I always was, but I didn't know it. It's this is called adhyasa, mutual superimposition, anyonya adhyasa. How does it work? I am the real consciousness. I am infinite. I am real. I shine forth. Now, I superimpose that reflected consciousness upon myself, which means what? The evident nature of that reflected consciousness, which is very limited. I feel I am limited now. And I superimpose my own nature on that reflected consciousness. And the reflected consciousness feels I am real, I am conscious, I shine. So now you have an amalgamation, a strange mixture of two things. I am real and I am limited. What are you really? You are real and you are unlimited. You are awareness. What are you not? That limited consciousness, reflected consciousness. But when you mix them up, when you superimpose one on the other, the two appear as a real and limited consciousness. And tell me, isn't that what we think of ourselves right now? We are really there and we are very limited conscious beings. That's what we think. That's the amalgamation of Chit and Chidabhasa. This mixture. It's like a strange, weird thing where I, the real face, having forgotten my nature, but I'm there. Even if I forget the real face will always be there. I now think I am that reflected face in that mirror. I don't even call it a reflected face. I say, that's me. Now, everything that affects the mirror now affects me, though it really doesn't. Then Krishnamurti Vishwanathan asks, is ahankara vritti and is lighted up by Chidabhasa? Absolutely. Ahankara is vritti. Every function of the mind is a vritti. What are the functions of the mind? Mana, buddhi, chitta, ahankara. Mana has sankalpa, vikalpa. Thoughts about, vrittis about objects. And then the intellect is, definition of intellect. We read all of that. That's the beauty of the Vedantasara. I can use it to answer all your questions. You asked, is ahankara vritti and is it lighted up by Chidabhasa? Let me give you the answer. The book has already given the answer. Please go back to text number 69. Text number 69. Direct answer to your question. This is the beauty of Vedantasara. You asked ahankara, is it a function of the mind? Is it a vritti in the mind? Abhimanatmika antakarana vritti ahankara. Ahankara, the ego, is what? Is the appropriating function, abhimanatmika, which says, I am XYZ, you know. But for our purposes, the answer is antakarana vritti. It is a vritti. And every antakarana vritti is lit up by reflected consciousness, because it's like a mirror. So always the reflected consciousness will be there. When you feel I, that shines with the reflected consciousness. But you are not that vritti, ahankara, nor even the reflected consciousness in that. You are not the mirror, not the reflected face. Then Kiran asks, Swamiji, is Brahmakara vritti the same as Manonasha, or is this a result of Manonasha? Manonasha, if you see it as a sense of, samadhi, Manonasha can be understood in two ways. One is the negation of the mind. That means the mind is not real. Another one is the shutting down of the mind, chitta vritti nirodha. Now, Brahmakara vritti, is it the same as chitta vritti nirodha? Technically not. Technically, it is a vritti. If you do chitta vritti nirodha, samadhi, then the vritti is not possible. But the samadhi may be followed by the Brahmakara vritti. When you have the Brahmakara vritti, aham brahmasmi, in a very concentrated mind, it will plunge into samadhi then. But why I'm saying this, I'm careful with this question, is one great sadhu, Akhandananda Saraswati, who was very well known in the north of India in the 50s, 60s. He went to the Sringeri Shankaracharya in those days and asked him this question, that what exactly is the nature of Brahmakara vritti? What happens there? The Sringeri Shankaracharya says, it is like striking a rock, unbreakable rock with a sword. What will happen? The sword will be broken. It will not be able to crack the rock. It will be broken. What happens is, when you investigate I am Brahman with the help of all the Upanishads, the mind will be focused on this knowledge. As the mind, as it clicks, as it falls into place, the mind itself will disappear. You realize Brahman alone is shining forth. And whatever happens after that, mind comes back, body comes back, world is there, that's nothing other than the shining of Brahman. Now, if you want to call this Manonasha, yes. It's a very subtle and powerful answer. Here you can see the combination of Advaita Vedanta and Patanjali Yoga. In one side of it, it is like the Asampragnata Samadhi of Patanjali Yoga. On the other side of it, the initiating factor is the Brahmakara vritti of Advaita Vedanta. It's a very subtle question. Pravir Basu asks, what lights up the object that I'm looking up? Is it that it is the reflected light from the object that is entering my eyes? It creates a vritti in the mind which is illumined by Chidabhasa. Correct. But where the first light comes from? What do you mean by first light, Pravir Babu?
I mean, let's say there is a book lying on the table, that book has to be lit by something. That's an external light, isn't it?
Yes, that's an external light. Yeah, external objects, because your sense organs will depend on external conditions. It has to be lit up by an external light, and that light will come. That is what your sense organs are designed to accept. That's a material light, of course.
So that's a material light lighting up a material object.
Correct. It could be a light for us, for a dolphin or a bat. It could be the sonar sound waves, and it's just one mode of perception. Every mode of perception has its own physical mechanism, and all of that can be copied. Machines can do that. I mean, your radar and sonar and infrared sensors, they all work on technology already available in nature. That's all material.
But if I start from Brahman and if the world is appearing from Brahman, then I can't seem to come around. I mean, I get
Why not?
lost in this
All of this.
situation.
That's why all of this is useful. You start from Brahman. Then what comes next? See, now I will subcontract out all the questions to you all because you have read Vedantasara. What comes next after Brahman? Maya. What comes next after Maya? All the products of Maya. The five subtle elements, five gross elements. With the five gross elements, what is created? The 14 worlds, the universes. In the universe, what is there? There is the sun and the moon, and there are chemical lights and there are electromagnetic lights. All kinds of radiation are there, which are all material. Those light up material objects. What are they? They are none other than Brahman. How do you know? The whole chapter on apavada, adhyaropa apavada. You go back from that material world, all these physical elements and radiation and everything into the subtle five elements, and the five elements are nothing but Maya. Maya is nothing but Brahman, Saguna Brahman, and Saguna Brahman is nothing but Nirguna Brahman. Then Rekha ji says, you are Brahman with or without knowledge. Of course, of course. Then why go through all this trouble? Because you are suffering. You are in trouble. You don't know it, that's why you suffer. You're like, you are a billionaire. Then why do I need to know all the accounts where all my Bitcoin has been kept, all the passwords and everything? Because without that, you can't use your billions. I think Dimitri is there. He's the Bitcoin guy. Do you want to ask a question, Dimitri?
Yes, yes, Swamiji, thank you. Swamiji, I wanted to verify if I'm getting it right. So at the moment of the enlightenment, the very notion of I disappears. There is no such thing as I. It's just Brahman. That's it.
The very notion of I. You said yes. I. Be very careful there. People, there's a tendency, many people want to say this, but don't let go of that. What will happen, what the tendency is to say that, oh, there is some absolute reality which alone exists. Neither the world exists, nor I exist. No, that absolute is you yourself.
Yes.
Don't let go of the I. The I, as Dimitri is not real, it's not there. But the I indicates that absolute reality. Until
there's a singularity, right?
Yes. Why? There's singularity. But why does Advaita keep on insisting on I am Brahman, I am Brahman? Because the more you think about it, you feel that I becomes inconsequential there. You are right. That I is the ego. That becomes inconsequential long ago. But unless you realize it as I am Brahman, it will still remain as what is called paroksha jnana, indirect knowledge. What is the difference between indirect knowledge and direct knowledge? I can put it very precisely. Brahma asti. Brahman is, that's indirect knowledge. There is this absolute reality, Brahman, perfect, infinite, unlimited. Nothing else exists besides that. That's indirect knowledge. Brahma asmi. That's the difference between asti and asmi in Sanskrit. Asti is. Asmi am. Brahman is. That will not help you. That might be a very peaceful way of thinking about it. Brahman, I am. That will help you. That will immediately set you free from all trouble. So that direct knowledge is Brahman, I am. Brahman is indirect knowledge. Brahman, I am. 10th man. That's the topic for my talk this Sunday. 10th man. When the people were weeping and that we cannot find the 10th man, our 10th friend, then the wise man comes and says that he realizes what has happened. They are not counting the 10th person, that is himself. He's not counting himself. So he says the 10th man is there. Your 10th friend is there. That is indirect knowledge. Everybody feels, okay, 10th person is there. But where? I believe you. I sort of get it that somehow it must be there because you say so. But I don't see it. How? And then thou art the 10th. He realizes, oh, I am the 10th. Then all the sorrow is gone. So that I am the 10th, the direct realization must come. Don't let go of the I.
And this final, this kind of I am, it's sort of, because as it continues to manifest in Maya, it's an ego. The ego essentially becomes my question is that, all right, this happened, and then Brahmagyanis continue to live. They can they're using words, and when they say I am, that's Brahman speaking through the ego, so to say. And the ego already, like at this point, ego is permanently educated, and there is no confusion that I am this or that. I am Brahman, and that's it.
Correct. That was the topic for our discussion in this last Lamp of Bliss talk. You see how these questions are beautifully answered there. For an enlightened person, what does I mean? I, when the enlightened person says I. So it leads to the larger question of what does I mean for the rest of us? For the rest of us, I means is this one, this body-mind. Or more precisely, in the language of the Panchadashi, it means, for the rest of us, it means pure consciousness, chit, plus reflected consciousness, chidabhasa, which includes the reflecting medium, the mind or the fragment of Maya. In the example, what does I mean? It means the real face, the mirror, and the reflected face. That's for us. For the enlightened person, I means two things. We saw last time that there is the implied meaning, the two implied meanings are there. One is that the I means pure consciousness. I am Brahman. For me, when I say, what are you really? I say, I am the real face, the one here, which cannot be seen. The one here, the real face, that I am. And for practical purposes, for dealing with the world, when Sri Ramakrishna says, I will go to Calcutta, I need a glass of water, and he sees his own picture and he says, this will be worshipped. And so what is he talking about there? There he refers to the ego I, the body-mind complex, the reflected consciousness, the chidabhasa. For the enlightened person has done this one simple thing, has been able to distinguish between pure consciousness and reflected consciousness, chit and chidabhasa. That's it. So the enlightened person can refer in all truth to I as the chit, pure consciousness. And for dealing with the rest of us, can refer to the I as the chidabhasa, reflected consciousness. But we can't. What we consider to be the reflected consciousness is a weird mixture of pure consciousness, reflected consciousness, and its reflecting medium. Yeah.
Thank you.
Sudhir says, is it that after enlightenment, Maya still continues her magic, but you know how she covers and know Maya's magic? Correct. You have found the magician and you understand the magic now. It will still continue and you will delight in it. For you, it is aesthetic enjoyment. The good and the bad, the suffering and the pleasure, all of it is the play of Maya. But you will have complete compassion for those who do not know the difference. And they are actually suffering. Srinivas says, is it like the finite knowledge removes finite ignorance about Brahman? When both are discarded, leaving Brahman, the infinite knowledge, as your own self, infinite consciousness, yes, as your own self. It's always there, and that is what remains. Rick says, in enlightenment, is there still a sense of personal self, so almost undetectable, like a candle on a sunny day or a current in the ocean? So understanding that some sense of personal self, Lesha Vidya, is necessary in order to function in the world. Absolutely. A sense of the personal self will remain, and with all its qualities. Sri Ramakrishna liked, after enlightenment also, he liked jalebi, the jalebi, the Bengali sweet. And Swami Vivekananda liked chocolate ice cream. He could always be brought back to the dining table. His American disciples knew that the moment you had just to announce there will be ice cream for dessert, and he would be back immediately. So where does that come from? That comes from the personality. Sri Ramakrishna is a poor Brahmin priest from the remote village of Kamarpukur. Swami Vivekananda is Narendranath Datta, English-educated Calcutta boy. So their personality has a whole constellation of likes and dislikes and factors, but it's not them. It's the mirror and the reflected face, and they know about it. It's the nature of the mirror. And for them, it's not me. They're very clear about it. But they hold on to it, or it remains for a time being. Sri Ramakrishna says, It's like a burnt rope. A burnt rope, if you don't disturb it, it still looks like a rope, sort of slightly singed and dark. It looks like a rope, but you can't use it to bind. If you try to tie something, it will just fall apart into ashes. In fact, if you blow on it, it will fly away into ashes. Similarly, it's, as you said, it's like a candle in the daytime. It's simply overpowered by the blazing reality. Nisargadatta, this is a sign of an enlightened person. You see, directly if you ask a question, they give such a powerful answer. Somebody asked him, are you always aware of your real nature as Brahman? He said, yes. What is it like? Is it like some kind of vague, like a philosophical understanding, like a concept, or like some kind of intellectual understanding, or like a background concept? He said, nothing like that. At that time on the Mumbai skies, at that time, sometimes you see the sun and the moon are both present. He says, Brahman is like that, unmistakable, blazing forth, scorching light of the sun. Brahman is like that all the time. And what you call the individual self and world is like that faint outline, the moon on the other horizon. It's there. It's a faint outline. It's world, personality, individuality, and the reflected consciousness is that. The jiva nature appears like that. Brahman is always. In Uttarakhand, they have these sayings in Hindi. It says, Thasarthas bharpur. It is packed with Brahman. This universe is packed with the absolute reality. There is not the slightest space left over for an universe. It must be an appearance. Every bit of it is the absolute. Every bit of it is God. And if you use theological language, there is nothing left over for a material universe, for a sinful nature, for an individual being. All these are appearances on the stage of divinity.
Swamiji, you were just talking about desires. And last Friday, I think it was in the Gita class, we were talking about desires. And I got the impression that you were saying that the enlightened person doesn't have desires. Correct me if I'm wrong. But you just said the enlightened person still has a sense of personal self. And when Vivekananda likes ice cream, or Ramakrishna likes jalabis, isn't that a desire? But wouldn't we say that the desire is sort of negligible by comparison with the fulfillment of the self, whereas for the unenlightened person, the desire is rather all consuming because they don't have that larger fulfillment. Yeah,
absolutely. The desire is we might call it an abhasa, an appearance or a shadow. It's something that continues over from the husk. You are using the mask of the individual self. So it has the original appearance as it looked, the way it looked earlier. But every bit of it is permeated by divinity. So that desire is like the burnt rope. It will not bind the enlightened person. It's just a mask which the enlightened person uses to interact with the rest of us.
But you still need those sort of little impulses of desire as a motivation. Otherwise, you wouldn't be motivated to do anything.
Yeah. So what will happen is, whatever was the mind or the personality at the moment of enlightenment, that will continue. So, but that is no longer the reality you are bound by. The mirror, whatever the mirror was, and the reflected consciousness, reflected face in the mirror was, that will continue after you realize I am not the mirror, not the reflected face. But the mirror will be the same, and the reflected face will also look the same. But you just now know you're free of it. So Totapuri, Sri Ramakrishna's master, he had a fiery temper, and that continued after his enlightenment also. So when he was talking about I am Brahman, there's only one reality, and then this the night watchman of the temple comes, and Totapuri had the sacred fire, the dhuni burning all night long, and the watchman comes and says that I want to take some fire for my tobacco, for my smoke, and he picks up like a ember from the sacred fire, which you cannot do actually, it's sacred. Totapuri flies into a fury and takes up his tongs and chases the poor man around. And you can imagine he was this huge and naked to boot, and this towering, powerfully built Punjabi. And the poor watchman made a run for it to save his life. And Sri Ramakrishna couldn't stop laughing. He rolled on the ground and clapped in glee and laughed. And Totapuri said, "What are you laughing at?" And Sri Ramakrishna says, in Bengali. "Tom Brahma Gyaner Daur Dekhlam." I've seen the limits of your enlightenment, your knowledge of. No, you're just saying all is Brahman. Why are you getting angry? And Todapuri said, "You're right." And nobody ever saw him angry after that. So this is the difference. If they want to get rid of a particular aspect of that mask, they can. If they feel it's not helpful or something negative, they can. We can't, because first of all, it's us, it's me. And if you try to get rid of it, it's like tearing myself apart. For them, it's just a thing. Oh, this thing is not quite appropriate. Okay, I can erase that. And it's nothing to me. I am that absolute reality. Then Alpana says, after Brahmakara vritti dissolves, can the mind still try to create another vritti to know what is being... remember, dissolves means what? Badhate, negates. Remember again, after enlightenment also, the mind will continue to function. Vrittis will keep coming exactly like whatever else was going on. After you realize the ocean and all the waves and the bubbles and the foam and the surf in the ocean are nothing but water. Will the waves stop? Will the bubbles stop? No. But you realize that there's no such thing as a wave. It's water and water all through. There's no such thing as a blue sky. It's a colorless sky. There's no such thing as water in that place in the desert. It's an appearance, it's shimmering heat, and it's a mirage. But it still looks the same. Similarly, vrittis will continue. Even Brahmakara vritti will continue to appear. But what is meant when you say dissolves? It's negated, falsified. Don't forget the term badhate, negation. You realize it's Brahman and it continues to appear. So vrittis will keep on appearing. So this distinction, it's absolutely clear to the enlightened person. It's a child's play. But for the rest of us, when we study, I remember at Harvard, whole class was dedicated to one, like a passage. Again and again this comes up. The Buddha is omniscient and knows everything in the universe. And the Buddha knows, sees nothing, hears nothing, smells nothing, touches nothing, remembers nothing, desires nothing. Which is it? Whatever is known, desired, thought of, heard is false. And that has gone for the Buddha. The Buddha will never see what is false and what is unreal. And at the same time, you're saying the Buddha is omniscient, the Buddha knows everything. Which is it? Professor Garfield called it the brainstem Buddha. Brainstem Buddha. Buddha is reduced to a brainstem, like coma, brain dead Buddha. Is that what is meant? No. The brain is fully functioning. Consciousness, the subtle body is fully functioning. Intellect is fully functioning. Memory is fully functioning. Ego is there. Mind is there. See, don't get confused. They're all fully functioning as they were earlier. And yet, truly speaking, none of them exist anymore. It's only Brahman. Am I confusing you? It should not be confusing you. After you realize in pottery barn, all of it is clay, do the pots all disappear? No. But what disappears was the idea that there are independent things called pots out there. Okay. Lola has raised her hand. Lola, would you like to ask?
Hello, Swamiji.
Hello, Lola.
Thank you very much for your talk. I have a question about Buddha's was speaking about being empty of self. Is it what he was talking about, being empty of the small Lola or small person or jiva, and remain Satchit Anand? That's what you was just talking about now, that Buddha is.
Exactly. In Buddhism, the nature of the mind is empty. True nature of the mind is emptiness. The true nature of all our experience is mind, and the nature of the mind is empty. What does that mean? None of this has any substantial reality. Then what is real? Buddhism will say, don't ask that. For them, real means objectively real. And they will show whatever you think is objectively real is not so. It's not real. It's an appearance. And that should be enough to free you. You shouldn't have to talk about Satchidananda and absolute. So that's the Buddhist approach. In Vedanta, a positive side is given. You are the absolute. It's in Madhyamaka Buddhism. Madhyamaka and Yogachara Buddhism of the synthesis which you find in Tibetan Buddhism. There they also talk about the positive aspect in a very guarded way. They will say that it is the clear light of the void. It is the Dharmakaya, which is always there. But they will not say it is Sat, Chit, Ananda. All of that they don't want to say. They just want to leave it there. And they're right. In one sense, it's good to be careful there.
So it's just empty of self. That's how far they go.
Yes.
Being empty of self and to contemplate on emptiness of my person as just a small person, Lola, right?
Yes. And after that emptiness of self, the person Lola will still continue to appear.
Right.
Right. But you are not it. You are free of the person Lola. You are that impersonal awareness in which the person Lola has appeared, is playing around, and will one day disappear. You are perfectly all right. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you. So please remember your questions. You can ask. We'll have more time from next time onwards. It'll be a more, we'll be taking a more relaxed, nice and things, like we'll be more relaxed. The things which are going to come afterwards are useful, practical, but also pretty easy compared to what we have seen. Very good. Om Shanti 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 Harihi Om Tat Sat Shri Rama Krishna Arpanamastu.